All right, let's get things started. Good afternoon and welcome to the eighth module for the CCI Clearance Preparedness Program. As a reminder, you all have received calendar holds for the two remaining modules. The next module will be on October 2nd from 1 to 2 p.m. Our speaker in October will be Susan Vital. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. Microsoft's Director of Customer Success Account Management. As always, please reach out to me if you have any questions regarding attendance and module logistics. I will now turn this over to Dr. Eric Berger to introduce our speaker for today's module.
Thank you so much, Kendall. And Cate, thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. For the students on the call, you may recall that over the past 7 modules, quite often I would say, that situation often ends up this way, whatever, but really talk to your facilities security officer. So we have today a real live facilities security officer. Cate Moss has been working this area for over a decade at a company called G2 Ops. And again, I hope to not hear anyone ever again say, how do I get a clearance? To get a clearance, you need a job that requires a clearance. But this is a company that may have jobs available that require clearances. So I would offer pay close attention. And as always, put your questions into the Q&A, any administrative things put in the webinar chat. With that, Cate, again, thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Bear with me a second. Let's see. Share screen. Oi. So I guess I'm doing this without slides.
Are you possibly not allowed to share?
It's
Try one more time. Let's see if this works.
okay. Share. There we go.
All right.
Yeah, and we see it even better.
Yay. All right. So let me begin. So good afternoon, everyone. Um, I know the process of obtaining a security clearance can feel overwhelming. Many of you might be wondering, will they dig into every mistake I've ever made, or what if I don't pass? Those are perfectly normal concerns. As a security officer, a facility security officer for a cybersecurity defense contractor with 16 years of experience in the security field, and having spent the last 5 years consulting with a clearance law firm, I've encountered a wide range of situations. I've been through the process myself, and I want to share some insights from my own experience by addressing some of the most common myths and offer you guys some practical tips and share some personal stories. My goal is to help you feel more prepared and confident as you move forward in your careers in the cleared world. I also want to acknowledge that I've sat through all of the seminars that have taken place so far, and CCI has done an excellent job of covering the clearance process. The security program manager did fantastic at explaining the technical details, and Dr. Berger did a great job going over social media policies, marijuana governing policies, and issues on a more agency specific basis. I don't need to repeat what they've already explained. There might be some overlap. So I'm going to keep my portion brief so we can dedicate some time for your questions. I'm here to help clarify anything that's still on your minds. So, also, quick disclaimer, while I can offer sound advice and recommendations, I cannot grant a clearance, nor am I an adjudicator for specific complex issues. It's always best to consult legal counsel. All right, so let me start off with some of my favorite myths. Myth number 1, you need a squeaky clean record to get cleared. The reality is the government uses the whole person concept, which means they understand that no one is perfect. A human being is just complex. Most people have something in their past that they worry about. And whether it's financial, personal, or legal, it's really how you handle and disclose these issues that really matter. Most of the items that you will worry about may be mitigated easily. The real key to adverse information is mitigation. Some items will mitigate themselves purely through the passage of time, or that you've done the hard work on getting ahead of them and addressing them. So, my most recent freak out was a first time applicant who called me up in absolute tears saying she needed to resign because she'd been afraid to tell me about it, but she accidentally ate an edible at a party. And after calming her down, I told her to continue with her form and fill out as much information as possible. Because she's not a routine user, nor was she habitual, nor was she a habitual user, I didn't think there would be a problem. To this day, her package was one of the quicker ones for me to get through the process. Past marijuana use doesn't necessarily disqualify you. Current use and intent on future use will be cause for concern. Again, I'm aware this topic was covered so in detail, so I'm going to move on. Myth 2. A clearance takes forever to get. Well, the timeline varies on various factors and case complexity. Things speed things that can speed things up is by being proactive with your paperwork and ensuring accuracy. If your position allows you to start with an interim clearance, that any mitigating factors sometimes can be handled quickly. If you do not have any major red flags in your bathroom, I've seen an interim clearance granted in as little as 7 days for secret, 2 weeks for TS. Of course, as you've heard in other presentations, being granted an interim clearance does not mean you automatically will get ultimately granted a full one. It does allow you to get started quickly. So, my key advice for myth 2 is for a fully adjudicated security clearance, well, actually, the honest truth is yes. It'll take a while to receive a final determination, but be prepared for it to take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Again, it depends on how complex or controversial of a background you have. Do you have extensive foreign contacts? Do you have a troubled financial history? Did you engage in more than just experimental drug use? This can take longer for the government to review, investigate, and adjudicate. It does not mean you'll be denied, but it could definitely slow things down. So, myth 3. Mental health issues will disqualify me. Not necessarily. There is no mental health diagnosis that will automatically disqualify you from obtaining a clearance. It's crucial to be honest about mental health concerns and demonstrate they are being responsibly managed. In fact, properly seeking help and reporting it and following your treatment plan is seen as a mitigating factor, not negative. Seeking mental health treatment could cost you your clearance. This is one of the most persistent myths and it's a bit of an old wives' tale from the old days of security vetting. It used to be a negative stigma to have sought mental health assistance. The agencies have made a concerted effort to get away from this antiquated perception. The agencies want you to get proper mental health treatment. Right. The other thing is you have to list all your mental health counseling on your SF-86. The SF-86 does not ask for all mental health counseling. It only asks about specific conditions and those that may cause a security risk or impact your judgment, such as psychotic disorder, schizophrenia, personality disorders. The form does not generally require disclosing of such things as treatment for anxiety, depression, or mental marital stress. The rare exceptions are when there has been some separate issue tied to it, like criminal conduct, misuse of medication, or court ordered confinement in a hospital. Oops. So, myth number 4, my debt or student loans will stop me from getting cleared. So, everyone has debt. The government does not expect you to be a perfect person with your credit cards. The key is to avoid allowing debt to become delinquent, otherwise otherwise act in a way that makes the government think you cannot be trusted to live responsibly. If you have bad debt sitting in collections, the key is to immediately work on a repayment plan. It doesn't have to be amazing. You don't even have to pay it all off immediately. The government wants to see that you're taking proper steps to address it. Be prepared for the government to review your credit history. Make sure you're up to date on your accounts. Make sure you also properly fill out all of your tax returns. Yeah. So, myth number 5, a criminal charge means I won't get cleared. Criminal history will raise red flags. A felony conviction will certainly be difficult to mitigate. More than anything, the passage of time without new charges, as well as showing you've completed any probation, community service, or paid fines, can help mitigate damage. Yes. So, myth number 6, a dual citizen can't get a security clearance. False. Dual citizenship does raise concerns, but they can be managed and mitigated. The key is making sure that you're only traveling on your US passport and leaving the country, and do not take any new actions that raise concerns about your allegiance to the US. If you have a foreign passport, prepare to offer to surrender it to your security officer if you're requested to do so. If you do not have to affirmatively do that. Just be ready to do it. Do not take steps to renounce your foreign citizenship unless the US government instructs you to do it. You don't want to tip off a foreign government. Do not vote in foreign elections if you want to get a clearance. Do not open foreign bank accounts if you can avoid it. Try not to buy foreign real estate. These are things that can just increase the government's concerns about your foreign connections. Obviously, if you've done all that, you're going to have to mitigate it. So, oh, sorry. Um, Now that I've said all that, I've got some boilerplate practical tips for clearance preparedness. Get your addresses, school, job information, and documentation in order. One of the biggest holdups in clearance processing is incomplete, inaccurate paperwork. Start gathering all of your personal history now. This will make it easier later. Making sure there are no gaps in your employment or your residency. Any financial anomalies involving debt that that has gone to collections, regardless of the circumstances, will be uncovered during your investigation, and you can get ahead of it by reporting it and showing that you are making an effort to address those financial issues. If you have student loan debt or have struggled financially in the past, make sure you have a clear plan to manage those issues. The government wants to see responsibility and accountability. So, my final tip is don't lie. The honest truth is, in my entire career, in my vast experience, the most unrecoverable mistake anyone can make is lying on their SF-86. It's not about the mistake itself, it's about trust. If you lie on your form, it shows that you're not trustworthy. How can the federal government expect to trust you with their secrets if you're going to lie? The clearance process values transparency above all. So it's always better to disclose information that they ask for upfront instead of lying about it, even if it feels uncomfortable. So, real quickly, wow, that's it. Clearance journeys aren't always smooth. In 2010, when I applied for my own clearance, it took me several weeks. I was foreign born to a military family. My mother was a foreign national. We couldn't find my State Department birth form for my birth, and I had 18 addresses. It was a mess. And when I finally did all of that, it was stressful. After that, it took about 2 months for me to get an interim clearance. So that was 2 months of me waiting before I could start my new job. But I was organized and patient in the end, and I got through it. As an FSO, this has shaped my perspective. I've seen firsthand how these processes work from both sides. This gives me, and I can just tell you, honesty and transparency go a long way. And yeah. So, anyway, by focusing on these myths and tips and personal stories, I hope to give you some perspective. So, with that being said, does anybody have any questions? That was really short, I know.
I'm not seeing questions. Again, a reminder for folks to type into the Q&A. I guess while we're waiting, can you tell us a little bit about G4 Ops?
G2 Ops? Yes.
G-Top, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. We're so I'm not a I'm not a software person, but we are a model-based systems engineering company. We have we're based out of DC, Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is the hub, and then we also have offices in San Diego. I do know that they love to hire kids straight out of college, and I start most of them off in the beginning, and they've all grown on to do great things. Got a lot of cloud engineers, and yeah, yeah,
Great, yeah. So you actually, yeah, you mentioned, it can take up to a
yeah,
year, sometimes more, to get a
yeah,
clearance. Would G2 Ops hire someone before they have a clearance, or do they kind of need a
yes.
clearance first?
So we hire people who are talent. Like I said, we do like to scoop up kids straight out of college that we recruit from hiring fairs, um, and we do also like to hire people who are extremely talented without clearances, and we'll get them started. Typically, I will deal with them first, and I normally do a quick pre-employment vetting to see if they are, just to get a feel for them. And if we like them enough, we'll give them a start date for like a month in advance, and then I'll get them started. Yeah.
Great. And we do have a question that's
Mm.
actually a pretty good one.
Ooh.
Can you get a jump on the SF-86? Do you have to start it now at home just to see what's on it, or do you have to wait until you're sponsored for a job?
So you can so the way the SF-86 is given to you, it's through this application called EAP. And you can't have that sent out to you unless we are intending on initiating a clearance for you. You can go online and get the standard form and pre-answer the questions, and I I did that in the past. I mean, for myself, but this is the olden days. This is the olden days. I still have my Excel spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can find the PDF, the old
Yes,
PDF.
there is a
That's what
PDF
it used to
online.
be. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So here's, you talked about how
Mhm,
fast it can, like an interim can happen, but
mhm.
the nightmare scenario, what's the longest you've seen someone have to wait for a clearance?
Okay, my worst nightmare. Okay, let's see. I had a young man. He was a software developer. Very excited. He filled out his form. I sent it back to him about 15 times. He had some homelessness and also some legal issues and some finance issues, and it took him 2.5 years to get through. But he got a lawyer, and his lawyer would I just asked for status, and but we had to go through step by step and mitigate things. I mean, he was lucky he didn't get a straight up denial, but he got through it. 2.5 years. I've seen them sit for 3, but normally if I see somebody sitting for more than 2 months and I don't see any movement on my end, I make phone calls. Not everybody does that. It's just a personal thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point is, having a good facilities security officer can make a difference
Right.
for
I
a
mean,
lot of
and
this
then
process.
and then he just didn't elaborate on some of his issues. Like, yeah, I smoked weed in 2010, but he didn't give any more information. It's just, so they're going to follow up on it. Sorry. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. So actually, along those lines, so that did have a happy ending, if even if it was
it
a lot of
did, but
work
not
for
all of them
you.
have happy endings. So,
That's right. That's right. Uh, so would companies, you mentioned like G2 Ops likes to pick up people out of, you know, they
yeah, we
got
have an
their, just
internship
get.
program
That's
too.
right.
And yeah.
But do you have any idea, what about like non-traditional students? So someone who had a career and has just gone back, got their master's degree, but they're more like mid-career or something like that.
So we actually have hired a couple people along those lines. I think last year I hired a software developer who's 50 years old. never had a
Mhm.
clearance. He actually took a while to clear. I mean, he got his interim, but he answered all the questions exactly. He read the questions and answered them correctly. I don't know, like from my perspective, that's like incredible. Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
can tell you, I still sometimes, well, I do. I'll go talk to my FSO and say, all right, what are they really asking here?
right. I mean, there are two schools of thought. There are FSOs who'll say, "Tell the government everything," and I'm like, "Hold on, give them exactly what they're asking for." Is my thing. I mean, if it's a little extra, I mean, I remember you covered have you ever questions. And I'm like, yeah, definitely always disclose that. But if it's been 10 years and 1 month, I'm like, I mean, do it if you want to, but if it's 10 years and 1 month and it's not really answering the question they're asking, then don't even bother. Right?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that's great.
Yeah.
So here's one. So you talked about 2.5 years, eventually got it.
Hmm.
Uh, and we got a preview of this. All right, if you lie, you're going to get denied. But have you seen like denials that got successfully appealed?
Yes. So that's how I consult with a legal law firm. For fun now at this point. I mean, I do mostly, but that's how, like, 5 years ago, I had this guy. I told him, go see a lawyer, go talk to a lawyer. He found this law firm. They give him an hour-long consultation. He could afford the retainer agreement. I've learned that Doha cases take 6 months to a year to get through, even if I mean, when you get to that appeal pay, yeah, it's not easy, and I've also seen them not, and it's always because they lied. They straight up lied, and the government figured it out. I mean, they're not going to figure out every single lie, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, so here's one. I actually did have a student that had this issue where, they've applied for a job. This particular one was a government job. So they basically said,
Mhm.
once you get your clearance, you can come work for us. And it took, like 9 months. So in the meantime, she got a job like bartending.
Mhm.
So that's a question here is, should you still be looking around for jobs if you're in that kind of situation where you're,
Absolutely,
waiting on a clearance? Yeah.
absolutely.
Although she regretted doing the bartender because she was in the cyber core program where you have
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
work obligation, and she could have worked for the crummy little agency that didn't really count while she was waiting for her dream job at the agency that everyone
Y-
wants to work for.
Yeah.
And so she kind of regretted doing the bartender thing instead of, well, starting the clock
Right.
on her obligation. But yeah, now that said, I'm assuming working as a drug dealer on the corner probably would not be the job you'd want to take.
No, absolutely not. That would fall in the reporting requirements and illegal activities. But no, when I worked at the Pentagon for 10 years, and when I was there, I had civilians, applying for jobs for other agencies, and they would sit for 9 months still working for us. I mean, if you're a defense contractor and you have a offer letter and we initiated your clearance, but you don't have a start date until you know you either need an interim or a full. There's nothing that says you can't go look for jobs at other defense contractors. I mean, it's not. I mean, I won't encourage it, and we won't like it, but there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah.
Great. And actually, kind of on the last one, this
Mhm.
is actually also, and I'm curious about kind of the
Okay.
inverse of this. The first question is, are denials final?
So yes, they're final, but you can reapply for a clearance exactly 12 months when afterwards.
Okay,
If you get a
that's right.
final,
Yeah,
like there's a final denial, if you go through all the adjudicate and they give you a denial, that denial is there for exactly a year, for a whole year. And you can apply a year later, and I've seen people do it and do it great, well, but I will say that almost always they won't get an interim clearance. They have to wait until their whole investigation plays out before they're even given any kind of, yeah, decision.
And for people who haven't downloaded the PDF version of the SF-86,
Yeah.
that is one of the questions on the form is, have you ever
Yes.
been denied a clearance?
Hmm.
The other side of that is, all right, you've been just, how should we say, a normal denial. You do the appeal, the adjudication says, yeah, we're not denying you. But does that mean you've got the clearance or do you have to reapply?
That mean if they're not denying you, that means they're giving you a clearance. I mean, as long as you have a sponsor, they'll give you the clearance. Your denial
Okay,
has been reversed. Yeah.
great. So here's one, and I have gone over this and what the law says,
Hmm.
and we don't want to encourage people to do this, but let's say you do lie on the SF-86. Is
Mm-hmm.
there anything bad that can happen beyond you don't get a clearance?
It really depends. I mean, did you like break up? I don't think so. I mean, it'd have to be extremely egregious.
Right? Because the letter of the law is it's a felony. Yeah, the letter of the law
Right.
is
No,
you're
the
lying
letter of
to
the
a
law
federal
is
officer.
lying
Right,
on
yeah.
this document. You've got a public burden of 150 hours, and lying on this document, you could be, yeah. So
Yeah,
I've not seen any it happen, but now I'm
yeah.
gonna go look into some case law about it.
That's right, because it is one of those things, probably like you said, if someone, because that's the other thing is, does the government know you've lied versus I forgot?
Hmm.
Uh,
Right, and that's the other
yeah,
thing for in a lot of cases.
right.
So,
But yeah, if you lied about the fact that you're married to a KGB officer,
mhm.
that probably
Yeah,
you may
yeah,
find some other repercussions.
right. Or you like, yeah.
Good, good. So actually right now the queue is empty, but
Wow.
uh, yeah, I know. I mean, part of it is unfortunately, as you said, we've had a lot of stuff, but maybe can you talk about your journey? How you ended up in the cleared world in the Pentagon. Was it
Oh,
cool? Is it a thing that you would suggest people, yeah, here's what's great about it. And likewise, as you probably noticed on the early things, what's not so cool? Kind of
I
what's
mean,
gripped your style?
okay, so I mean, I got my first real clearance in 2010. I've also had a couple public trusts. I wanted to join. I actually wanted to save the world and do the State Department. I did 2 internships. It kind of, I don't know. I fell out of love with the State Department, and then I didn't know what to do with my life. So my dad suggested, "Hey, why don't you try getting a cleared job anywhere?" So I tried multiple places. My first job was technically, I was escorting people around and scanning documents. It was a terrible job. I mean, I waited 2 months for that job, and it paid really well for what I was doing. And then within like a year, I transitioned to a better job, and I ended up in a secure space managing stuff in there. And then yeah, that's how. I mean, nobody chooses my profession, but it I kind of fell in love with it, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I have a neighbor who's my age, and
Mhm.
he said, Eric, I've been asked so often, do I have a clearance that maybe it's time to get one? And, he was approached by a defense
Mhm.
contractor to do a little bit of consulting. And he's like, Eric, this is like a third of what I usually charge. And I was like, well, you can look at it as it's not worth your time, or, do it, get your clearance. And then once you've got your clearance, you pretty much have your clearance.
Yeah, and it's a commodity in this market, especially defense contracting. I mean, we pay more money for somebody who already has a full top secret than we would somebody who doesn't have one already, as is. It just
Great.
and then the opportunities, I can't
Yeah.
even. Yeah.
So one thing I did is I put the URL for G2 Ops
Hmm.
in the answers section. So I know some people probably will be very eager to find out about opportunities and
Yeah.
careers with you all. Unless we see more questions, is there anything you'd want to close out with? Any parting advice?
Uh, my parting advice.
Although actually, before we're doing parting advice, again, another great question, which on the one hand has been answered, but it might be good to uh, uh, reiterate. And this is a person about my age.
mhm.
And yeah, in the 1980s, maybe they bounced a check. So 40 years ago, right?
Okay, so that's not
And they
that big of
might
a
have
deal.
experimented with marijuana. Does that get disclosed?
If it's under the ever stuff, but I can tell you right now that if this was in the 80s, what you got going for you is the passage of time. Again, if you're older, if people are complex and they're looking at the whole person, and passage of time is what you got going for you. Everybody's bounced a check. I mean, I'm in my 40s. I've bounced a check. Yeah. So,
And for the younger students, we
mhm.
used to have these paper slips that you would write money amounts on and sign called checks. Uh, who uses a check now?
I have a
And
checkbook.
yeah, that's right. And my recollection is the marijuana question is, have you in the past 10 years?
Uh, yeah.
So clearly something 40 years ago,
Mhm.
you wouldn't disclose that. But,
Right.
again, as Kate said, you might have done it in the 80s and you're having edibles to help you with your sleep.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's, in fact, more than disclosable. That's probably don't bother applying until
Yeah.
the law gets changed. Yeah.
I mean, I know they're trying to change the SF-86 altogether over usage. I mean, I've also dealt with people my age who have a medical card. They haven't used it, but at the time they didn't ever plan on getting a clearance, and they normally they'll apply, and I've been able to mitigate that for the most part. Like, but normally there's got to be at least a year between usage and applying.
Right.
But
And that's like a federal law. There
yeah,
is actually a law in the
yeah,
books about
it's
that.
yeah, it's I mean, it's not federally legal. Yeah, and that's the thing. Oh, you didn't want a clearance when you had the thing, but yeah.
Yeah.
But that
And
takes
again,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And again, the irony in Virginia, where for a long time only veterans could get medical marijuana, but having
Yeah.
medical marijuana disqualifies you.
Hmm.
And here's actually another question that came in, which is okay, so you go through the process, you get your TS. How long does it last before you have to go like, do you have to reapply? Is it a full process? Or what goes on then?
Okay. So, after you get your full TS, hopefully you have a start date or you're already working on your job. Um, it's fully adjudicated. You're also hopefully I'll tell by record, you're enrolled in something called continuous vetting, which was covered a lot because I had a whole chunk and I was like, no, you guys covered it. And I mean, this is under some security clearances don't technically expire, is the federal mandate, but you'll have to fill out another SF-86 at least 5 years later. That's like across the board now. So your clearance would be good. However, if you ever were to leave your job and lose your spot, like the company that would be sponsoring it, if you don't find another company to sponsor you within, I think it could be at any time with continuous vetting too, you will go, I mean, your clearance will be marked inactive. If you find somebody within 2 years, you can within a year or two, you can get a company to put in a thing asking the government to reactivate it. And yeah,
Yes, the
so they
infamous
don't go away.
SF-87C. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and have you had any experience with someone who's a naturalized? Well, actually, maybe you can talk about your experience, a naturalized U.S. citizen. Uh,
A,
can
a
they
not
get clearances? Yeah.
okay. And not so a foreign national can only get a clearance through what a special, like it's a
Yeah,
very limited thing.
that's the emergency thing. But this is someone who's naturalized. So
Oh,
they've taken the test, they've sworn
oh
the
yeah, I've gotten,
oath.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
plenty of those. Plenty. Yeah. About
Great.
25% of my applicants at this
That's
point.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. And this is one, I don't know if you'd know offhand about G2 ops, but do you have positions that don't require a clearance, or is like every job a cleared job?
I think I don't think we do at this time. We've had in the past because we do have unclassified contracts, but as of lately, I've mostly been doing cleared professionals.
Okay, good. Thank you. Here's another one that I think we've addressed a few times, but it can't hurt
It's
for
fine.
people to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
So you've used marijuana legally because you're in a state that allows it. You've got your medical marijuana dispensation, whatever. Uh, does the SF-86 only ask about illegal use, or does it ask about any use?
It asks about any use, and marijuana is not federally legalized. So
Yeah,
it
and I would offer
technically is
for
okay.
the person
Yeah.
who asked the question, re-review the "but it's legal in my state"
Yeah. No,
module.
and this kind of question, it comes up almost every day. Every single day. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other advice, and actually this is a plea, I will lobby here. Write your congressperson, write
Exactly.
your senator, because it is kind of screwy.
It is screwy.
What
Yeah.
we got. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Now that said, again, if you're going to be a nuclear plant operator, which requires a clearance, if you're going
Hmm.
to be on a nuclear submarine, uh, probably saying you're not using marijuana is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that's a thing to write your member of Congress about.
Hmm.
One thing someone did point out is that Northern Virginia and Norfolk, and I'll put in the pitch for G2 Op, San Diego,
Hmm.
for the same reason Norfolk is, are hotbeds of cleared jobs. So
Yes.
yeah, G2 Ops is obviously a great opportunity to get into some of those
Yeah.
markets. Um, so here's one, because this is part of the whole person concept.
Hmm.
Okay, so you had a performance improvement plan at your last job.
Hmm.
And again, one of the questions on the SF-86 is, have you ever been fired? And government's gotten smart. Have you ever had a negotiated departure? Because sometimes you've kind
Hmm.
of screwed up and the company doesn't want to go through any legal stuff, but they basically say, if you go away, we won't fire you, which is pretty
Yeah.
much the same as being
Right.
fired.
Have you
How do
departed in
you,
lieu
how
of
do
getting
you,
fired? Yeah.
that's right. So, clearly the person has to answer yes on that box, but, would you advise that they, put some other stuff down in the comment section of the SF-86?
Under employment or
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
so they've
So
gotten, they've gotten fired, or they've been put on an improvement plan or whatever.
so if they got fired, they have to put that in their performance improvement plan. I believe you should put that in there, but I believe the question also does cover, have you ever been disciplined for behavioral things or anything like that? I mean, they will go and check your personnel file. I mean, HR will they will follow up and check your whole file and they'll find it. So I, I would put it in there because they will, I mean, that is
Yeah,
something that
so,
they could, yeah,
so how should we say, don't lie?
don't lie.
But that also might be a really good question to ask your FSO.
Yeah.
What the circumstance, explain the circumstances,
Hmm.
and they can definitely help out. So here's an interesting one. Actually a good question, especially as we are in Virginia,
Hmm.
which is known as a right to work state. And this is when actually somebody does what the law's title is, as opposed to the usual thing, because right to work usually means you can be fired without notice. But what if you quit without notice? Does that impact your application?
It shouldn't. I mean, you will have to indicate that you quit the job. I mean, like
Actually,
you
can you because your microphone is still on your headset.
really, I thought it was like I couldn't get the sound to work. So yeah. So
Oh no.
yeah, the sound is coming from my computer. So I was like, maybe it's
Yeah, or maybe have one off the ear.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So, if you've quit your job, I mean, I believe you also have to put in why you left, right? And the
Right,
reason is, like for me, why did you leave? I got laid off or I found a new job. But I
right.
mean, I think quitting is if you quit unexpectedly, yeah, that's why you left. I believe. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Something that actually, unless you have uh, an answer for this, somebody is asking, what do you mean reach out to your senator? And literally, these are your representatives. You pay them out of your taxes to represent you in Congress.
Mhm.
And they actually like to talk to constituents. So Senator Kane and Senator Warner. They have a whole bunch of offices across the state. They have emails, it's warner.senate.gov and kane.senate.gov. Depending on where you live in Virginia, and everybody on the call should be in Virginia, uh, you know, uh, look up your congressional district, who your representative is. They regularly, especially since we're relatively close to DC, they're regularly physically in town. And I would offer, you don't have to talk to your member specifically, talk to their staff. It's their staff who tells them what's going on anyway. It's actually
Mhm.
more valuable to talk to the staff and tell them, this is an important issue for you. And by the way, the senators definitely know about CCI. I would
Mhm.
say, hey, I'm a student in CCI. I'm in this program. I want to, serve the nation, and it would be great if we could fix the marijuana laws. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
But no, it does not mean if you used marijuana 5 years ago, you should go call up Senator Warner and say, hey, help me get my clearance. They're not
Yeah.
going to do that.
No.
Okay, so now let's go for any closing thoughts.
Mm. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, uh, thank you for your time. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, stay organized. If you ever get in a position to get a clearance, make sure you read the questions and ask your FSO. Yeah, I that's
That is
that's
great.
good enough. Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
yeah.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for your time today. In fact, we regularly get that question of, can naturalized citizens
Hmm.
get clearances? So I'm glad that you've
Yeah,
got the experience of lots of people get the clearances.
yeah.
So
I mean, they come with a lot of
yeah.
reporting, but I mean, it's not that bad.
Right, right.
Hmm.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Thank you, Kate. And
Thank you.
we will see you all the next time. Kendall, any closing housekeeping?
No, Kate, thank you so much again for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and your insights, and sharing your own background and journey through the clearance process. I knew the students really appreciated that. That is all, and we will see the students in October. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, bye.